Whoa, nice one. Fantastic, Chris. Fantastic. We were just talking about the non-alcoholic beer and how it's so nice to have some great non-alcoholic options out there.
Yeah,
Um,
so true.
yeah, our friends down at Eco Evolution, there are some mocktail nights. There are some great sober night events over there, and we love to see it. We think that is fantastic. And Barb, our friend Barb Jenis, might be doing a reading, doing an event with the Sober Night group down there, which is
Right.
super cool. I know. I'm just tuning in on Facebook as I always do. So I'm just popping in over here. I see we have some people joining us already. We love it. Welcome, welcome. On Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Hello, everyone. We are not verified on Twitter. So we don't, I don't know if anyone's out there impersonating us, but
Here they are. Who could resist that?
I know, right?
They're impersonating us and doing all kinds of things. Who knows what they're doing?
All kinds of wild stuff, saying like false things like Chris cut his beard. Oh my God.
I'm here to tell you, it's not true, people.
It's not true. It's not true. Keep tuning in.
Come on, Elon, get your act together over there.
Together, Elon. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. It's been crazy. It's been crazy watching what's going on over there. And honestly, I'm getting in, I'm in the midst of an additional master's in data science. And I'm just watching all of those, all of these people in tech and losing their jobs. And I heard that they're running like the way that they're running programs live that probably shouldn't be run live. Ooh, it's scary. But anyways,
Mom is here. Hello,
Mom is here. Hey, Mom and Dad. Hey. Welcome everyone who's coming in. We are very excited to be with you this lovely Sunday evening. It's gone from summer to winter this weekend here in Connecticut. Hasn't it been a little bit wild?
I don't know if it got to winter. It went from summer to fall.
Summer to late fall.
70 to 40 something.
70 to 40. I literally had the air conditioner on yesterday and I turned the heat on today. Very strange. Very strange.
Get out of bed and like, what the hell do I wear today? I have no idea.
We don't know. We just we don't know anymore what we're gonna wear. But I guess it's nice. The only thing you all know that I've wanted to get cozy, get him under my blankets, light my candles, have my bath bomb, bubble bath. And I need to do that when the weather is chilly again, when it's hot. So I've been waiting for it to get chilly, but I hate wearing extra layers and jackets. So, I've had a little bit of everything that I've wanted this weekend. I can't really complain. So
yeah, right. Get 4 seasons in one weekend.
in 1 weekend, yeah. But Chris, how is your battle with the yard leaves going?
Well, they're almost gone.
Oh, good.
Almost gone through a lot of sweat and toil.
Toil.
I mean, when I say sweat, I mean sweat because I'd be out there. It'd be like 70 degrees.
5 degrees.
In the sun, raking and blowing and dragging leaves hither and yon.
Hither and yon.
We've got a million trees over here, and I'm telling you, it's a crazy town.
It is.
Yeah. I did hire people once, and it cost like $1 million. Because we have so many freaking leaves. And then like the next year I tried to hire them again and they were like, they didn't call me back.
You're like, no. Forget your yard, mister. Oh my God, Chris. Oh my God, Chris, that's too funny. That's too funny. Oh man. Well, I'm sorry. You had such a rough time. I'm glad it seems to be nearing a conclusion. with the leaves, but it's 8 o'clock, Chris.
Sure
We need
is.
to give an official welcome to FUMFA 113 Veterans Night. We are very excited to welcome writers, guests, special guest writers who've been featured in Consequence Forum and who are kind of celebrating Veterans Day, honoring veterans, and talking about veteran life issues and writing, and we're really excited to welcome them. We kind of had a little bit of I feel like a little bit of a beginning to Veterans Night last weekend, even when we had Ryan Stovall on. If you didn't get to check out that incredible reading with Ryan Stovall and Dara Kalima, you gotta check that out later. But we're super excited to have an introduction from our friend from Fulham, Deb Carr, and then to have readings from Mark Baskill, Matt Burgess, Gillian Crichton. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Gillian. And Joshua Nagel. The last name is what I should have asked him about for pronunciation.
That's great.
All right. I will fix it.
That's a cool name. That's a very writerly name.
Very cool name. I think so too. So we have 4 incredible special guests with us, and then we're going to have our Q&A at the end. And of course, we wish a happy Veterans Day to all, and thank you to all who served and to all who work with veterans as well. We're really happy to have this special evening. But Chris, tell us what else we have coming up real soon.
All right. Yes. Next week, we won't be here on Sunday, but we will be live and in person in Norwalk on Friday.
Yes, we will.
That's the 18th at Eco Evolution. That's 135 Washington Street in South Norwalk. Live in person open mic night, and we have just a I don't know. It's a cavalcade of
a cavalcade.
We've got a couple of FUMFA folks, including Rebecca Dimian, who's got a new book out, and our old friend Pete Nelson, who's going to play some music, and the one, the only Kira McSpice.
I know.
I'm looking forward to meeting anybody named Kira McSpice, but
right.
next week. And then the following week, we will be back here on Sunday. Or actually, the following week, no, we won't, because it's Thanksgiving weekend.
Right, well, vacation.
So we'll be off, probably lying around, feeling full. And then we'll be back on the 4th of December with FUMFA's own Elena Dillon and the great Baron Wormser. And then the following week, we got Rebecca Dimian again, but she'll be on this program with Derek Webster, also FUMFA folks. So, we got some great stuff coming up.
Tune in. It's going to be amazing. And please, if you are anywhere in commuting distance to South Norwalk, Connecticut, this upcoming Friday night, it is going to be amazing. We've got such a great community going on. As Chris mentioned, we have these incredible features. Chris and I will be there. The wonderful Brad Kerner of Eco Evolution, of course, will be there. And we have some great local regulars who are planning to read, to perform, to share, and you too can sign up in advance to perform. We have our links. Hey, Frankie! Hi! We have our links up on Facebook and Instagram. You can jump in there and do an advance sign up. You can also do a walk-in sign up the night of, but it's really good to save your spot, so do that advance sign up.
Yeah, sign up. Sign up ahead of time. Commit yourself, people. Commit.
Yeah, commit.
Business. Put your name down on the list. Show up and have a great time. Dang it.
Yeah.
That was Frankie, of course, and she was asking if we're ever going to have a teen writing night.
I think we should.
We get some teenagers with their writing on this program.
I think we should. That would be amazing. We've actually never done that, Chris.
I know. It's we've forgotten about all those kids out there.
Well, I know. Well, and that's a fantastic idea, Frankie. Thank you so much. And if you have any ideas for the new year for 2023, if you'd like to be a feature, or if you have a fantastic idea for a theme night or representing an awesome publication, kind of like we're doing tonight, like with Consequence Forum for Veterans Night, for Veterans Day, an hour Veterans Night reading, please do reach out to us. We would love to make it happen. But we need to get started with our evening readings. We are going to get started actually with a little introduction from our friend, fellow FUMFA alum, Deb Carr. Welcome, Deb.
Hey, welcome. Glad to be here tonight. And like you mentioned, I mean, we have Consequence Forum, which is actually the website and the whole program. And then we have Consequence, which is our literary journal.
Got it.
So I am the humble slush pile fiction reader.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Me, along with 4 or 5 other folks. Our reading periods are like twice a year, and we get, at least for fiction, well over 200 submissions.
Wow.
So one thing I'd like to do is read Consequence Forum's mission statement. So Consequence Forum addresses the human consequences and realities of war and geopolitical violence through literature, art, and community events, offering intellectual and emotional access to the experiences of combatants, victims, and witnesses. We provide the public with works and voices from around the world to promote a clearer and more nuanced understanding of what's at stake in choosing to wage war or engage in conflict. We present readings, panels, and talks, and publish visual art, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and translations, both online and in print. And I can put in the chat, I'll put in the website for Consequence Forum. But if you can't remember it, just remember Consequence Forum, it's one word. And it was founded by George Kovac, who was a Vietnam veteran who served as a combat infantryman. And several years after he got back from Vietnam, he actually got his MFA in creative writing at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And awesome. He decided, I want to create a literary magazine, which he did. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2020. Oh. But our executive editor, Matt Kraniak, is kind of carrying the torch and trying to, make sure that the magazine and the website kind of adheres to George's original vision. And here's an example of the journal.
Oh, hey!
So when you go, yeah, it's got that's the artwork. And like I said, we're always looking for people. So poetry, nonfiction, fiction, translations. If you want to art. Or translations, if you want to write something in another language and have it translated, or if you're bilingual.
Very cool.
I think that about covers it. And for Veterans Day, you're trying to find. I mean, our focus is international, but we were trying to came up with 4 writers who. Write about conflict from kind of a U.S. perspective for Veterans Day. So I'd like to thank, Katie and Chris for hosting, also for Matt, the executive editor, and Michael, our fiction editor, for agreeing to my idea. But most importantly, our 4 writers. As a slush pile reader, I don't get to see people's cover letters. Right. So it's completely blinded. I can't focus on the packaging. I can just focus on the product. So it's great to put faces to works of art. So most importantly, I'd like to thank our 4 writers who are reading, because if they hadn't agreed, then there would be no show.
That's
So,
right.
without further ado,
Deb, thank you so
sure.
much for providing that fantastic introduction. Thank you so much for getting us in touch with these awesome writers and for helping us plan tonight. We're so grateful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Chris. Well, let's welcome our first reader of the evening, Mark Pascal. Welcome, Mark.
Welcome.
How are
Hello.
you doing this evening?
I am doing well. I'm pumped to be part of this program. So
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share your. Oh yes, fantastic shirt on.
yep, that's my 5K Veterans Day run shirt. Yeah. So
We love
my
it.
pup and I won that. It was a dog run. So the Coco and me won the 5K for Veterans Day. So
That's
Coco.
fantastic. That's great. All right. Mark Pascal is a clinical psychologist in Wilmington, North Carolina. For the past dozen years, he has helped veterans recover from the many invisible wounds of war. Prior to the pandemic, he helped pilot a creative writing group to help Vietnam-era veterans heal through telling their story. Take it away, Mark.
excellent. And thank you for having me part of this program for Veterans Day, to Consequence Forum and to the organizers. Without further ado, boots for Sisyphus. Smiling like his patron saint Sisyphus, Squirrel guided the purple Mustang from the amber glow of sunset at Santa Monica Pier to a ridge in the San Gabriel Mountains, into the darkness, always uphill. Squirrel had been there and done that, shrapnel biting his shoulder, pins grinding in his ankle, and that hammer pounding in his temples attested to that. At 42, Tom Brady put on his 5th Super Bowl ring. At 26, Squirrel's body was already out of the game. Squirrel's saintly smile dissipated under the weight of memory. He had seen things for which he doubted forgiveness was even possible. Squirrel loosened the laces on his Mojave Rat combat boots, scratched the skin over the hardware keeping his ankle together. His lips curled in a valiant attempt at a smile. Sisyphus would have died for a sturdy pair of boots like these. Squirrel glanced to his right. Why was he driving Cal, a fireballing high school prospect, from Redding, California to Wrigley Field? What was this kid thinking, punching a wall with his pitching hand a week before the state championships? Out of the game with scouts all over the place. The play-by-play team announced that the Giants had failed to score again. Squirrel nodded to St. Christopher, suctioned to the dash, and wondered why he agreed to let Angel, her guitar, and her Miss Frizzle lectures hitch a ride too. Angel, tiny and nimble, soft blue-green eyes embedded in creamy coffee complexion, and a voice truly from the heavens. Her name suited her. How could he turn down an angel playing for tips on Santa Monica Pier and way too comfortable living in Charlie Manson's old apartment? Squirrel smiled as if these whys were not important, as if he was built for this journey as much as Sisyphus was built to push a boulder uphill. The trio stopped at the Flying J just west of Barstow, gassed up, loaded up with In-N-Out burgers, and negotiated the next phase of the pilgrimage. Cal voted for a Motel 6. Squirrel suggested they drive on. Angel voted with Squirrel, but only if Squirrel let her drive the Mustang, as he had promised. Squirrel kept the promises he could keep and agreed to let Angel take the wheel. He provided her with detailed instructions and GPS guidance to stay on Route 66, where its remnants could still be found, and I-40, where modernity buried the old road. Angel slid behind the wheel and reset the mirrors to suit her smaller frame. The dash cam beeped on. What can that camera see at night? Squirrel curled in the back seat. Well, if I dropped that camera into the bottom of the ocean, it could see the color of Jonah's underwear and hear him singing the blues in the belly of the beast. And don't fuck with it. I set it to record every 30 seconds, every 30 minutes for the duration of the ride. Cal slammed the passenger door closed and asked, but why? Squirrel popped a Percocet, took a swig of Angel's tequila, settled deep in the back seat, and answered, why not? Cal grabbed his wrapped, broken left hand. My hand's killing me. Will you slide me a few of those pain pills? Squirrel reached in his bag, pulled out a stick of Wrigley Spearmint's gum. Oh, that's just gum. It's government gum, kid, same as in my pills. Chew it for 60 seconds and breathe through one nostril at a time. Cal chewed, put his hand on one nostril, and breathed. Feels better, right? Yeah, what is that shit? Squirrel stretched his legs across the back seat. Placebus maximus. Angel smiled and pushed the start button. The Mustang engine roared to life. Cal kicked back in the passenger seat, chomping the gum as contentedly as a pup after catching a treat. He instructed Angel, "Stay in your lane. I don't want to get lost." "If you never get lost," Angel tossed her head back, "means you've never really gone anywhere." Squirrel supposed Angel was right. He closed his eyes, but he did not expect sleep. Helmland was bad, but he hadn't slept since Bamiyan. Sometimes his closed eyes see Luzinski stepping off a pressure plate in front of the empty sockets of stone-faced broken Bamiyan Buddhas. Gone. Sometimes they see Toad's bloody boots 6 feet from the shreds of his left leg, or his own fibula poking out from his own shrapnel-shredded Mojave. Sometimes, as he and Toad are waiting for medevac, his eyes see Captain Paul's angry smile and hear him say to the uninjured members of the unlucky platoon, "When y'all meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Same goes for everyone else you meet today." Sometimes his closed eyes see the narrow, winding path up the ridge in Ashland's Lithia Park, crisp, piney, earthy, Oregon aromas. His breath, easy and strong, leading the high school cross-country team up, always uphill. Legs churning, lungs burning, head not yet full of gravel and glass. Squirrel's seat seemed to drop from under a thunderclap. He bolted out of the stopped Mustang, rolled to the ground, looked over a ridge to see a vast desert filling with shooting stars, Humvees, tanks, and tracers. Tracers! He crawled forward as if trying to bury himself in the rock, lifted his head, looked over the ridge. "Toad, where are you? What the fuck? Where's contact?" Another earthquake rocked the area. Military aircraft descended and sent streamers of red and green toward rock piles. At least 2 platoons of parachutes unfolded above. Squirrel scanned again and noted a kid on the ground and the woman kneeling over him. The kid gasped big guppy breaths. I can't breathe. I have anxiety." The woman spoke yoga teacher style. "Inhale. Keep your eyes open and on me. Drop your jaw. Now your shoulders. Now your belly." Mesquite in the woman's sing-songy voice flew Squirrel back to the present. He surveyed the situation. Parked on a ridge, shadows of vehicles maneuvering under flares and tracers in a moonless sky. He reached for his phone, no signal. He went back to the car, pulled a tactical compass and small flashlight out of the glove compartment. Another blast interrupted his orienteering. He shouted, "Why are we at 29 Palms?" Angel ignored Squirrel's question, pulled out a vial of essential oils from her bag, put a drop on her thumb, returned to Cal. Cal backed away. "It's lavender with a hint of almond. It helps anxiety." Angel gently pressed her thumb to Cal's cheek, beside his right nostril. Squirrel crouched beside the pair and stared at Angel. How could she turn south on Route 247 instead of heading east on Route 66? Never fall asleep, never trust anyone else to drive. So why the fuck are we at 29 Palms? Angel stood, leaned against the Mustang's hood, folded her arms, nodded over her right shoulder toward St. Christopher, suctioned and stoic on the dash. "Don't put this clusterfuck on St. Christopher." Angel stood unperturbed, face glowing under the light of a flare. "Just what kind of Marine is named Squirrel?" "The kind that buries his nuts in the ground when the bombs go off," Squirrel glared, then flipped the tactical compass open. Cal breathed easier, pointed to the brass compass. "Can you really use that to figure out where we are?" Squirrel scrutinized Cal, still on the ground, recovering from the panic, but not the shame. He clicked the compass shut, smiled to Angel, and softened his tone. "I'm Lakota. I don't even need a compass." What's 29 Palms anyway?" Squirrel opened his right hand and swept it across the distant horizon. "Home of the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, also known as the Dark Side." I thought Star Wars owned the Dark Side, like the copyright." "Nobody owns the Dark Side, kid." Squirrel surveyed the area again, reacquainted himself with a body that now carried 50 pounds more weight than he carried up the Lithia Park trails. I thought Marines were the good guys." Before Squirrel's first deployment, there did seem to be good guys and bad guys. By the time his second and last deployment ended in a naval hospital at San Diego, Saints and sinners were harder to find and harder still to tell apart. Angel scanned the shimmering desert. How do you turn exquisite nightscape like this into a wasteland? Add Marines, Squirrel answered with no hint of humor. Angel and Cal got blankets, tequila, the guitar, and snacks from the car. The trio washed down leftover In-N-Out burgers with warm Gatorade and tequila. Cal swigged a Gatorade tequila blend. You don't even play Tour of Duty. Why did you even join the Army? Oh, the kid was really getting on his nerves. Squirrel mentally listed the reasons not to lay him out. Cal was an orphan, raised by Uncle Tony. Squirrel promised Uncle Tony he wouldn't lay Cal out no matter how irritating he became. And a promise to another jarhead was a promise meant to be kept. An eagle is not a turkey. Squirrel wanted to tell Cal the whole truth, that his parents met at a hippie commune in Antelope, middle of nowhere, Oregon. That his parents quit that utopia, moved to Ashland, raised he and his sister on shit jobs selling weed and unemployment. Squirrel wanted to tell Cal that in his 1 year at Oregon State, he met combat photographer Anmi Lee, that her Small Wars collection inspired him to want to be a combat photographer. Anmi Lee was no fan of war, but Americans fighting in Vietnam allowed her family to escape its brutality. Anmi Lee helped teach Squirrel to appreciate the complexities of life battles, the perils of judging other, and the necessity of forgiveness. And Squirrel wanted to shout that his mother's people, the Lakota, are warriors, eagles, not turkeys. His uncle, Billy Mills, was a Marine lieutenant when he won the Olympic 10,000 meters in 1964. Warrior to the core. When Squirrel lost his partial running scholarship, of course he listed in the Marines. Instead, he said, I'd seen so many people drowning in debt after the crash. Credit cards, underwater mortgages, student loans. I joined the Marines because I was determined never to be in debt. Squirrel kicked a stone, clasped his hands in the front pocket of his Baja hoodie, and dropped his eyes to his feet. I put on these boots because I wanted to bear witness, to see and somehow not be a part of the darkness. I figured I'd take them off, stay out of debt, and complete my degree. He knelt, bowed his head, relaced his boots. But these boots are part of me now. It's all part of me. Angel brought a smile to Squirrel's face when she strummed her guitar. After she finished Paul Simon's Graceland, Angel tried to teach Cal the general. Cal eventually figured out the chord progression and joined in the harmony, but only after questioning what kind of loser general would give his troops a choice not to fight. A lone Marine Black Hawk helicopter buzzed low overhead, disappearing toward the receding mock battle. Squirrel made the sign of the cross in the air behind the helicopter, opened both his palms skyward, and spread his arms wide. A gentle stream of tears found its way from his hazel eyes to the hallowed ground beneath his boots. He whispered the general's refrain, Go now, you are forgiven. Go now, you are forgiven. And that was that.
Mark, awesome piece. What a powerful piece, Chris. Wasn't that fantastic?
Beautiful, really amazing. And what was the title again, Mark?
Yes.
Boots for Sisyphus.
Boots for Sisyphus.
Oh, that's great. Really, really great. Oh my goodness. In such a short space of time, we have these beautifully hewn characters and history and depth. A really powerful, beautiful reading, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And Mark, of course, will be with us in the Q&A. So save your questions for Mark for a little bit after 9 when we get started with that. Thank you again, Mark. We will see you soon. What a way to kick off the evening, Chris. Fantastic.
Perfect way. Kick off even with a road trip. And,
love it.
Some great intense writing. I mean, it's like that could be a movie.
I know. I saw it.
Characters stuck in this car, and then driving, and having crazy adventures.
So cool. So cool, so powerful. We love it. We love it. And I want to spend more time with those characters. I need to know more about them. Love it.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we have 3 more readings this evening, and we are super excited to welcome Matt Burgess. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, thank you.
How are you doing
Hey.
this evening?
I'm great. I loved your reaction to that story. I'm like, man, I hope I get half as excited reaction as you just got. That was good stuff.
Matt, it
I
depends on if she gets in trouble with her neighbor, like she did
Yeah,
last.
like last
you
week.
too loud. Yeah.
So if she doesn't do that, don't take it personally. It just means
It's the neighbor. Okay.
I have enough excitement to go around, and I love reading. So maybe by then it'll just be like a woo, like it's just like a whisper woohoo.
Perfect.
All right, but Chris, would you do the honors of sharing Matt's bio?
Absolutely. Matt Burgess is the author of the critically acclaimed crime novels Dogfight, A Love Story, and Uncle Janice. Raised in Jackson Heights, Queens, and a graduate of the University of Minnesota's MFA program, which is pretty cool. That's a groovy MFA program. Matt has taught creative writing in elementary schools, public libraries, correctional facilities. We could talk about that, and is currently an assistant professor of English at Macalester College. Take it
Awesome.
away,
Thanks very much. Thanks for the invite, and thanks to Consequence. And it's a real honor to be reading with my fellow contributors on this Veterans Day weekend. So the story is called Intake Assessment, and it's about a veteran of the Trojan War who it's actually interesting to be going after Mark, who's a counselor. It's about a veteran of the Trojan War who visits a counselor in ancient Greece to be diagnosed with PTSD. And it's formatted with it's all dialogue, the story essentially. So I'll do my best to try to indicate who's talking, but hopefully you'll be able to follow along. Your name, please. Hear me, O counselor, as my words take wings, for my name is Hippodamus, horse tamer of Pylus, son of Nicomachus, waste steward of Phalachi. And your age? Old. I'm sorry, can you be a little more specific? Old enough, O counselor, that upon waking as dawn spreads its rosy red fingers across the horizon, I cannot bend my knee without considerable grimacing, or lift my arm above my head without tweaking the puncture wound where a bronze-tipped spear long ago pierced my shoulder, and my mind oftentimes feels befogged. And may the gods help me whenever it rains, for my bones start to... Okay, how about we just skip that question for now? As you see fit, counselor. So let's see here. Your granddaughter, when she made this appointment for you, she said you wanted to talk about some trauma you'd experienced? Want to? I wouldn't say want to. As when a mass of flies buzzes at a horse's rump, biting at it, drawing little pinpricks of blood, until at last that headstrong beast begins to move, if only to receive a brief moment of respite, so too as my granddaughter goaded me here with her own near constant pestering. But want to? Would I say I want to talk about these things? No, counselor, hardly. I get that a lot, believe me. But all we're doing here today is a simple diagnostic assessment, a series of yes or no questions in which I might occasionally ask you to elaborate on your responses for the purposes of making a determination regarding post-traumatic stress disorder. I understood none of that. It'll become clearer once we get started. Yes or no, have you ever experienced or witnessed a life-threatening event that caused intense fear, helplessness, or horror? Of course. I'm sorry to hear that, Hippodamus. Do you mind elaborating? Hear me, O counselor. You can actually just call me Irene. Hear me, O Irene, as I tell you the promptings of my heart, for I am a veteran of the siege of Ilium, or the rape of Helen, or the Trojan War, whatever the bards might be calling it these days. Know this, I was there for all 10 years of it, from the start to the end, the beach to the horse, enduring all the skirmishes in between as Ares raged blind, flinging souls down to the house of Hades where the doors remain forever open. Before we go any further, Hippodamus, I would just like to thank you for your service. Yes. Well. Yes or no, Hippodamus, do you ever have intrusions about your combat experiences in the form of dreams, for instance, or repeated and distressing memories? I affirm that I have. Can you elaborate? Why? It's helpful to talk about them. Forgive me, O counselor, pardon Irene, but to whom might it be helpful for me to talk about them? Well, for one thing, your granddaughter suggested it might be beneficial to your relationship with her. I fail to see how, but I can affirm for you that I think often, perhaps too often, of the beginnings of the war, before we'd even landed at Troy, back when we were still crossing the vast expanse of that wine-dark sea. As the arcing arrow plucked from the marksman's bow hastens on its descent towards its target, so too did our entire Achaean fleet seem to pick up speed as we closed in on Troy. When that lofty city's high walls punctured the horizon, when its beach choked with soldiers came into view, the cloud lord Zeus himself hurled a mighty gust to fill our sails, as if the gods themselves were thirsty for bloodshed. With that Olympian wind at our backs, the flimsier oarsmen were knocked from their benches. Waves heavy as boulders crashed onto our decks. We rushed full tilt over the churning sea, swift as Hermes, although not quite that fast, of course. I do not want to offend the gods, for no mortal is that fast, but verily we went fast enough. Too fast for my own boat from shabby little Phalace. The bards say 1,000 ships launched out for Troy, but as usual they have simplified things. In truth, it was 1,186. I don't remember my own age, but I remember that, and there wasn't a single boat in that entire fleet more rickety than mine. I can still hear our thin backstay cables close to snapping, groaning under the pressure. I can still feel the soft wood of our hull beginning to fly apart at the joists. If wisdom had stood at the helm, believe me, we would have tried to slow down, we would have dropped our sails, or at the very least quit our rowing, yet we did not. We sped up, sweat blind and palm blistered, we rowed even faster, our slender oars striking the whitening water as our idiot commander lashed at us with his whip. But this is all ancient history, of course. No sense in talking about it at all. Thank you, Damas, but would you say that you're someone who tends to avoid certain thoughts, certain feelings or conversations in particular about your combat experience? I'm here, aren't I? I'm talking about it now, am I not? Yes, you are, Hippodamus, and that's a big step, but you ever talk about your time in Troy with anyone else? There is no one else. They're all dead, down in the house of Hades amidst the fields of Asphodel. What about your family? Do you ever talk about the war with them? May the gods bless you, Irene, but I promise you no one wants to hear these stories. Your granddaughter might. Please, your next question. I have duties to attend to. A wild horse to soothe before the hour arrives when my master's oxen are released. I'm gonna skip ahead in the story here towards just towards the end. What happens kind of in the middle is that Hippodamus inadvertently, but maybe kind of on purpose, unburdened himself with something that has been a source of great shame for him, and he thinks that that he's to blame for something that perhaps he is not. And so the counselor says, one of our aims here is to step outside of all that thinking, to figure out what's real and what isn't. Your thoughts, all those restrictive little narratives you place on yourself, that's not real. But these cicadas outside the window, flapping their wings together right now, that's real. This present moment, real. My voice, your breath, the smell of those cypress trees floating in on the breeze. Hippodamus says, like in the meadow you were saying, with my horses. When we get a new one, a wild one that kicks and bites at anything that moves, I will stay away from him, not for my benefit, but for his. It is just as you are saying, Irene. Day after day, I will linger about the fields with the cypress and the breeze, plucking flowers, harvesting olives. Not too far from the horse, but not too close either, so that he can become accustomed to my presence, to seeing me, smelling me, so that he can understand I am only another animal, as he is himself. After enough time, he will start tracking my movements. His head will tilt whenever I walk outside his line of sight or settle myself up against a rock to take a nap. Eventually, after even a longer passage of time, the morning will come when he will whinny at me in greeting. Oh, how the heart soars. How hard it is to stop myself from racing across the grass to bury my face in his mane. I have to stay patient, though. Take things slowly, maintain my distance. But I do start talking to him then. Sometimes even singing to him quietly, not about anything in particular, of course. The weather, the cicadas, yes, the tingle of the sun upon skin. When the horse is comfortable enough to approach me and not the other way around, I will place a hand on his shoulders, but only for a couple of moments, or I will give him a quick scratch at the crest of his withers. After a few days of those brief but tender caresses, I will offer him some treats, nibbles of celery and cucumbers. Then I will chew up a handful of mint leaves and breathe them softly into his nostrils. The counselor says, "That's a good trick, the mint leaves." "No, hardly a trick at all, Irene, but rather my own particular way of telling this fellow animal how much I care about him." The counselor says, "Thank you for sharing that with me, truly. And for everything else, Horse Tamer of Pylus. As we come up on the end of our time here, I'd like you to know, that is all? We're done? By the trident of Poseidon, believe me, I'm not complaining, but I thought we had an hour. It's actually 50 minutes. Then I am cured? No longer will I wake up in the dead of night screaming? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is refer you to a colleague of mine here at the clinic who's licensed to prescribe powdered elixirs derived from nature. It sounds like witchcraft. Call it what you want. It seems to help a lot of people. But in the meantime, if you're up for it, I'd also like to schedule another appointment for us to meet next week. You are in earnest? You expect me to do this all over again? What if I told you that I'd be chewing on mint leaves, she says. Thank you.
Matt, that was so powerful and beautiful and just powerfully quirky with this fantastic the Troy the Trojan War veteran and the language and the way that it's used, the hear me, oh counselor, you can just call me Irene, so good. But
Thank you.
that beautiful phrase at the end of I chew up mint leaves, my heart.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's such a great concept, and then to pull it off so well, right? It's one of those concepts that could just go so wrong, but it just felt perfect. I could see that. Yeah, I mean, I could see that as like a play, or something, and because it's funny, right? I mean, it's sort of sucked in by the funniness, and then it's like, oh, it's great.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. What an awesome reading. Everybody, Matt will be in the Q&A, so save up your cues for then. Thank you so much, Matt. We will see you then. Chris, what an awesome reading. Oh, what a cool piece. I need to hear more.
I know, and I think this is probably going to be the case for the whole evening. But
oh yeah,
they're so different, right? They're different, but so effective,
so powerful, so so fascinating, so much great stuff going on. Well, we need to continue with our evening and get to our next writer, our next guest. We're very excited to welcome Gillen Crichton. Gillen, welcome. How are you doing this evening?
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for, I saw in our private chat back here that I pronounced it correctly the first time, so I'm feeling better about myself. All right, well, I'll introduce you with your bio. Gillen Crichton is an employee of the Department of Defense and an officer in the Marine Corps Reserve. He is obliged to notify readers that his writing does not reflect the official policy or position of the DoD or the U.S. government. Very important. Find his fiction in Epiphany, Pembroke Magazine, and Consequence Journal. We're so excited to hear your reading, Gillen. Take it away.
Thank you. So thanks so much for having me, and thank you to my fellow readers to get to read alongside you. I'm going to read the first part of a story called Birthday. Major Riley was suspended from a pull-up bar mid-leg swim when Gunnery Sergeant Mortimer called out for him from down by the shitters, hustling toward the tension with all the speed he could muster. "Major Riley, sir!" Riley dropped to the ground and winced. A warm breeze licked over the sewage pit and swirled around the gym. Riley scrunched his nose and wiped his dripping forehead with the sleeve of his skivvy. He muttered an expletive under his breath, cursing himself for telling Jane he'd been hitting the weights. "Swear to God," he'd said, half shouting through the static, "I'm like a young Hercules over here." And cursing Mortimer for interrupting. The gunnery sergeant staggered the last few yards and keeled over, wheezing. "I sprinted all the way up here, sir." "What do you want, Gunny?" "Colonel Wolf wants to see you, sir," practically choking with each word. "I sprinted all the way up here." "One of those fucking days." A month until they could punch the clock. So soon and not soon enough. Riley looked out over the camp. The rust-covered free weights strewn about the tent jib, the decrepit wood turp trailers, the dilapidated shitters, the chain-link fence curling up at the bottom for any halfway enterprising Haji to slip through. And now, Mortimer, gasping like the plague. Sir, Colonel Wolfe wants to see you. Where's he at? COC, sir. The COC. Just beautiful. And only an hour until his telephonic drop-in at his son's birthday. Jane had suggested they wait a month, celebrate in person, but he'd insisted. I'll be there, he'd said. And Jane had exhaled real slow. I hope so, Arthur, she'd said. I hope so. Riley ditched Mortimer and threaded his way down the pathways that twisted and turned about camp. Past the base laundry, where they soaked the clothes in wastewater, spritzed them with body odor, and called it a day. Past the exchange, where everyone's favorite local national, Prince Ali, ran his little side hustle on international SIM cards. Past the artillery bunker, where base ops caught a couple of soldiers in flagrante delicto before a motley audience of privates and lance coolies. Caught them blazing up the heat vision camera like a supernova. A time and a place, Riley thought. Time and a place. Nothing good comes from letting loose, not with hundreds of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines roaming around, unoccupied and armed to the teeth. Put together enough bored as hell warfighters, the whole thing gets a mind of its own. Salam alaikum, my friend. Lieutenant Colonel Saad stood sipping mint-infused tea on the patio fronting his trailer, his cami blouse untucked and fluttering in the breeze. Inside the trailer, his deputies prepped the hookah and laid clean sheets on his rack. This was Saad's camp. It was good to be Saad. Morning, Riley called and gave a half-assed salute. Sure, Saad was a colonel, but all that meant was he came from the right tribe, paid the right bribes. If he didn't have special sway with the sewage treatment office, he'd be about as useful as a fart in a jacuzzi. Come, my friend, drink some tea. Can't, Saad, I'll swing by later. Riley mopped dust and sweat from his brow. 9 in the morning and the sun was already sizzling. His silkies were damp with ass sweat. Out beyond the camp's gate, Alzarka wobbled in the heat. A city of cinder block compounds and buzzing minarets. Not that Riley had ever seen it. His entire team of 40-odd Marines had never left base. What are you all even doing over there? Jane had asked. Good question. Riley rounded the corner to the Marines' COC, which shared a squat sheet metal building with the Army's TOC, Combat Operations Center, Tactical Operations Center, Tomato. Each of them a euphemism for 6 months of bullshit and boredom. Except now, there were dozens of soldiers in full battle rattle, streaming in and out of the TOC, all geared up to go full Rambo. Belts of heavy ammo, crates packed with high explosive, frag grenades dangling off flak jackets. A squad of privates manhandling anti-tank missiles. Riley screwed up his eyebrows. The fuck's going on, Thomas? Major Thomas, the Army's number 2 man, stood with hands on hips and wraparound shades perched on his receding hairline. Sure, the Army had 400 soldiers for some kind of border security mission, but all they ever seemed to do was wash their trucks. Thomas smirked. Guess you haven't heard. Heard what? Thomas spat and ran a finger around his gums. Heard what, Thomas? The door to the COC swung open and smacked into the metal siding. Jesus, there you are. Major Whitlow grabbed Riley by the shoulder. We sent Mortimer a half hour ago. A dozen Marines were huddled around the conference table, asses on the edges of their seats. Riley hadn't seen this much action in the COC since the 3-star came around for a tour. Not that the Marines gave a shit about the 3-star. The 3-star's aide-de-camp, though. What's with the skivvies? Whitlow whispered, a sweat mustache coating his upper lip. It's already 09. Riley, get in here! Colonel Wolfe paced behind his desk, and the nervous energy in the place made Riley's stomach churn. We've got a situation, the colonel said, as Riley dug through his camelback for a roll of Tums. The president's moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The American embassy, sir? DOD's upping our force protection of Bravo Plus. The phone's been ringing off the hook. Riley rubbed his chin and frowned. I thought the embassy was in Jerusalem. It's moving to Jerusalem, Riley. DOD's already got us at Bravo Plus. The Army's all over it. We look like a bunch of cocksuckers over here, dicking around, not doing squat. Due respect, sir, I think most people think the embassy's already in Jerusalem. We're dicking around like a bunch of schoolboys, Riley, walking around slick while the Army's mobilized. Riley glanced over at Whitlow, who had inched himself into the corner, half concealed by the colonel's potted plastic palm tree. Devil's advocate, sir? What if it's just an embassy? It's Jerusalem, Riley, the Wailing Wall. It's like a holy land to these people. So the Palestinians get up in arms for a few days. Riley, the whole freaking Middle East is going to be up in arms. The colonel snapped a can of dip and packed a wad against his lower limbs. This whole place is a powder keg, and every Mecca and Medina across the Middle East is going to burn. And they're not burning their little bazaars, Riley. They're coming for Americans. You think the Army can hold them back? Marines, Riley. They're going to need Marines. Only a matter of time before we get the call. Sir, what call? What call? Riley, the colonel said, folding himself into the chair behind his desk. Between us girls, I wouldn't be surprised if they extended our deployment. The COC door slammed open and Riley and Whitlow squinted into the harsh sunlight and took off at a brisk walk towards the Marine cantonment. Holy mackerel, Whitlow groaned, looking like a shell-shocked private straight from the trenches. Fucking hell, Riley said. I can't get extended out here, man. I can't take it. Whitlow, my anniversary is in 2 months. Jane booked tickets to Cancun. They don't even need us out here. Cancun, Whitlow. We've got what, 40 Marines? The Army's got 400? Big help you were, by the way, Riley said. Whitlow shrugged. I'm not the deputy. Riley stopped still. The hell is going on with our storage container? At the edge of the Marine cantonment, their 20-foot storage container stood with doors agape, and Marines bustling in and out, carrying gas masks and vacuum-sealed, oversized plastic bags. Hey, Staff Sergeant, Riley called. The fuck you doing in the storage container? The colonel radioed down, sir. Says to get the mop suits. The inside of the storage container looked like a Walmart on Black Friday. Gear thrown everywhere. Boxes ripped open, equipment strewn about, the detritus of years and years of interminable deployments. From standard issue ratchet straps and tattered shooting targets to a ratty old couch and a cracked satellite dish. Boxes of Gideon Bibles next to stacks of VHS pornos. And there at their feet, the torn open boxes of the team's anti-chemical warfare mop suits. Christ! Whitlow gripped his forehead between his thumb and index fingers. The mop suits? Is he serious? Whitlow was on the verge of tears. Those suits are individually serialized. I signed for them back in Lejeune. The colonel is out of his gourd. Riley, I personally signed for them. They're worth $1,300. That's what you're focused on right now, Whitlow? Riley, $1,300 each. Riley jumped from the storage container. Staff Sergeant! Sir, where are you taking those mop suits? Colonel Wolf says to go mop level ready, sir. Gas mask, blouse, camis, whole 9 yards. Just make sure the Marines don't open this shit up, okay? You want us to leave the suits in the bags, sir? In the bags, unopened, no shitting around. Riley pointed his index and middle fingers at his own eyes, then at the Staff Sergeant. Unopened, Staff Sergeant. This shit's out of hand, Whitlow said. Riley watched the Marines trudge away with their mop suits, clipping their gas masks to their thighs and already ripping open the vacuum-sealed blouses and trousers. Christ, Whitlow said. Riley's pulse throbbed. He checked his watch. 30 minutes to telephonic father time. He popped a Tums and grabbed his gas mask from the storage container. He didn't know which would be worse, missing Andy's birthday or disappointing Jane. Both, he decided. Definitely both. Get the officers together, he said. Meet by my hooch. 15 minutes. We gotta sort this shit out. Riley left Whitlow and hit the shower trailer, where he stripped off his skivvy shirt and silky shorts and gingerly passed his hand under a torrent of water, piping hot, even with the knob swung to ice cold. He danced about the dank little shower stall and briskly cleaned his pits and wanger. What the team needed was to remain calm. They needed stability, poise, some fucking serenity. That's what the team needed. Riley breathed deep in the steam, and with his flip-flopped feet spread wide, paced hard against the concrete. Thank you.
Wow! My quiet wooing. Gillen, oh my God, what a scene, what a situation. The imagery, I'm totally there. And I'm stressed out with all of these guys. Oh my gosh. And so powerful to be in these scenes with all of these different characters and just this really crazy situation. I mean, that's that we sort of can reference from our own moment wherever we were when we heard about the embassy move. And I wrote down a few quotes here: cement compounds and buzzing minarets, just this awesome imagery. And Cancun, Whitlow. Cancun. It was so great.
Right. Oh man, it was so real and immediate, and there's no fat in this
Nope.
piece, right? It's just like boom, we're right there, and
Boom.
the title "Birthday," right? So it's like it's looming. It's like,
Right.
oh my God, is he gonna make it?
That was really, really powerful, really intense, funny in all these different ways, and bringing so much kind of deployment realness in there. Thank you so much, Gillen.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, and save your cues for Gillen for the Q&A coming up. Thank you so much. After our last reader of the evening, we are so excited to welcome Joshua Nagel. Hi, Joshua.
Hi. Thank
And
you for having
we
me.
are so honored, of course, to have all of you as guests, but you are up very late because you are in Norway.
Yeah, I recently moved here from the UK about maybe a month ago. So yeah, it's almost 3 a.m.
Oh my God, we are so honored that you are, in the middle of the night here with us to share your reading. We're really excited to hear you. Chris, would you do the honors of sharing Joshua's bio?
Of course, Joshua Nagel lives in a river town with his partner and is currently seeking representation for his first novel. His short stories have appeared in the Masters Review, Consequence Magazine, Litro Magazine, Cerasis, Underwood Press, and Bull. So we look forward to hearing from Joshua. Take it away.
So thanks to Katie, Chris, and Deb for setting this up for us writers. I'll be reading from my story, Losing Teeth. It had rained for 13 days when they wrapped Davies in the waterproof tarp, carrying him on a length of bamboo like a trophy buck. Blood dried in his hair like gum. His mouth hung open. Cherry Kool-Aid stained his lips in a clown's frown. They took turns carrying him, humping him. They walked in a long snake-like column, turning, twisting, halting. He was heavy, awkward, draining, a burden. They wouldn't say it. They would not think it. Even when he began to smell, a steel trash can cooking in July. As he tripped them, stored them, dehydrated them. Even as he dragged them up to their boots in the black mud. Even after Lieutenant Burns lost his little girl's first tooth because he was hunkered over with his face towards the dirt under the weight of the body, and the tooth he kept in a small glass vial around his neck on a piece of rawhide had broken away from his throat. Even when the mud swallowed it forever, Lieutenant Burns didn't say a word. He only sank to his knees for a moment, pawing at the small, tooth-sized groove in the mud where it had fallen. Then the rain washed the groove away, and Lieutenant Burns stood up and carried Davies. The rain would come down in sheets, sideways, slanting, blasting. It came down heavy, fat, straight. Sometimes it fell from the sky like a sea mist, fine, invisible, wrapping around the trees, around their legs, up their waist like they were treading water. They could hardly see their hands in front of their faces. Wilson thought the land looked like prehistoric, like something from a movie when they showed what the Earth was like before. The rain changed everything. Trees and mountains and valleys became wraiths. ghostland emerging from the storm, sounds amplified, bird call and rifle fire, wrapped in symbiosis, a death song. It turned you around, got you lost, got you found. Resupply and medevac wouldn't come. It washed away your foxhole, washed away the taste of the sea rations. It rot your feet. It made your cock look like a shriveled sea snail. It pruned your palms so that the lines of your hands were topography maps of countries unknown. The rain made your body squishy, the way a newborn's looks. Wilson could feel the soles of his feet peeling away as he walked, stumbled, dredged, staggered. The laminated pages of the Charlie Brown he kept tucked in his breast pocket rubbed him raw, red welts across his breast, the kind he would leave on Jessica back home, in the basement of her daddy's house, the TV left on and turned up loud, the soft drumming of rain on the basement windows, a sound he had now come to hate. Kalensky sucked at the camel. Orange embers lit his chin in a dim jack-o'-lantern glow. A scar from a bullet traced its way across his throat in a jagged zigzag. A crisscross bandolier sagged against his chest. In his arms he carried the black M60, midnight on midnight, the color of volcanic rock, oiled, long, cumbersome, but snug, correct, right, just right. He walked point. He saw everything first, waded, crawled, ran. He met the jungle with open arms, everything it had to offer. He loved walking point the way a man loves to gamble his month's pay or hedge his bet against the biggest fucker in the bar, or sign up to the United States Marine Corps because he couldn't finish high school. His mother had cancer in her intestines and his father had fought and died in Europe. Point meant certainty, absoluteness, dead or alive, shoot or be shot, left or right LT, no maybe, possibly, probably. It was black and white. They thought him brave. Wilson, Lieutenant Burns, Davies before he was zapped. Kalensky thought himself smart, that he had it figured out and they hadn't. The cigarette sagged, damp. He lit it again, inhaled, blew out a cloud of blue-grey smoke. Then it went out again, so he lit it, inhaled, and blew out once more. Davy sloshed inside the tarp. The rain had changed him, and the heat had cooked him. Boiled, said Kalensky, like an egg. The weather didn't let up. 14 days. It even rained when the sun was out and there were no clouds in the sky. Humid, choking, smothering. Steam rose from their sodden clothes. Davy's boots stuck out the end of the makeshift stretcher. They could hardly even recognize his legs. His wet pants clung to his thin shape like saran wrap over leftovers. His smell clung to them. It passed down the line of the platoon, inhabiting them, cursing them. When Wilson and Lieutenant Burns checked a blown-apart camp, they thought they could smell dead NVA. They searched the tunnels, the hut. It took them half an hour to realize it was abandoned and the stench was them. They stopped once to bathe and to fill up from bomb craters. Iodine tablets fizzed. After 30 minutes, it was safe, but the water was still murky. Each man filled his 6 one-quart canteens and drank anyway. Kalensky led them north, then northwest. Mountains framed the distant shadowed shape of the base, home. The tree line dropped away and the land opened up to fields of tall elephant grass. Enemy fire from the cliffs to their left would turn them all into burger meat, but the jungle was still visible in every direction beyond the 20-mile clearing. They were out. A convoy of NVA passed in the night, ghost soldiers with no sound. Kalensky spotted the glint of moonlight off a barrel as it moved through the trees, then another, and another, and another. Quick flashes like the scales of koi surfacing in dark water. Charlie dead ahead. His voice was a whisper, lower than a whisper, a sigh. It passed down the platoon to Lieutenant Burns. Stay put. The message carried back to Kalensky. He nodded. No more than 10 feet in front of him, he counted 115 men. He couldn't understand why they hadn't smelled them, hadn't smelled Davies. The stench always carried, like signal fires. He nodded to himself again. He was glad he was on point. Wilson's eyes were heavy like a smith's hammer. Up, down, up, down. He took the funny pages from his breast pocket and unbuttoned his khaki shirt. The cool night breeze kissed the welts, soothing, silk, a phantom touch, the touch of Jessica, her soft mouth kissing his sunken chest, nibbling, biting. Goosebumps rose on his dirty, thin shape. He felt himself stir between his emaciated legs like a leaf turning over in the wind. When Kalensky's voice whispered back to him, he sat up, put the funny page away, and felt for his rifle. In the morning, they crossed a fast-moving river. Kalensky waded through the cold, clear water, feeling it rise up his groin. He sighed in pleasure, the fresh water lapping his ass cheeks. The dirt, the sweat, the leeches, blood, piss, lice, dried semen, all washed away. He never took his eyes from what was in front of him. Wilson moved up to Lieutenant Burns and others. and others with Davies. The river rose to their chests. Tumbling water buffeted the tarp in cold, hard slaps. Halfway across, Wilson lost his footing. He fell forward, the weight of the bamboo stretchers sagging into Lieutenant Burns' back. They all crashed like dominoes. Lieutenant Burns sprang back up instantly, gasping and wading towards the loose bamboo stick wedged between two rocks. Wilson screamed underwater as the river rushed into his mouth. He rose, coughing, sputtering. He looked around to the men who had cleared the river, shouting over to him, pointing downstream. Wilson saw his helmet racing away, upside down like a turtle shell, alongside Davies wrapped up in the tarp. The rain had stopped, 16 days after it began. The men's fatigues fell from them in tatters, like leaves in autumn, as they shambled into base, past the rest of their company, past command who silently held their breath from the smell. Kerensky marched up to a good stretch of barren land. He dropped his M60, slid his pack from his back, spat into his pruned, callous, pus-filled hands, and took out his entrenching tool. He began to dig himself a foxhole. He would sleep side by side with Wilson tonight. He had given his waterproof tarp so they could carry Davies. Wilson was exhausted. Overhead, the sky rumbled like steers across prairie land. Yellow-black clouds harried from the east. "Shit, man," Wilson said, reaching for his poncho. Fighter jets tore across the troposphere. They dipped low over the jungle. Wilson felt hot air rush at him, then past him. Something was falling from the sky, a rusty cloud sinking slowly, twisting, floating, graceful. It broke apart into tiny phantom particles. It settled on branches, vines, passing birds, the wings of a dragonfly, on the men's backpacks, their rifles, their hair, their eyes, their skin. They breathed it into their lungs. It fell on Wilson's face like the first snow back home. It tingled. "What is that?" "Defoliant, herbicide or some shit. Call it Agent Orange," said Kerensky. He wiped his mouth against his sleeve and spat. "Oh," said Wilson. He was glad it was not the rain. Thanks.
Wow.
Powerful, intense, Joshua.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God, that imagery had me on edge. Really, really powerful stuff.
Not only that, I feel damp. I feel like
Oh.
the rain. My God, just the endless rain. That was so powerful and real and poetic.
Super vivid. Yes. I wrote down Midnight on Midnight, the color of volcanic rock. The rain had changed him and the heat had cooked him, like this uncomfortable yet super vivid imagery. I was there. I was feeling it. Really, really, really powerful stuff, Joshua. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for being up so late with us.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we are honored. Well, it is time to welcome back Deb and all of our special guests this evening. Get your cues in the queue and in the chat for the Q&A. Welcome back. Thank you so much. Just another round of applause out there for Mark Baskill, Matt Burgess, Gillian Crichton, and Joshua Nagel. Awesome readings. Just fantastic pieces, and each one of you took us to totally different places, different characters, kind of giving us a picture of the experience of war from all of these different in all of these different stories. It was really, really incredible. Chris, shall we kick it off with our famous first question?
I suppose we should. I can't think of a better way to do it. So we'll just go in order. We've probably asked Deb this before, so we'll talk to the four gentlemen, but Deb can just jump in at any time and say whatever the heck occurs to her. But Mark, we'll start with you. How has writing changed your life? And just to give it like a little extra twist, like how is writing, this kind of subject matter, writing about war, writing about conflict in particular, has that changed your life, being a writer who takes on these topics? What's that done for you?
For me, I think it's cathartic and it brings balance. I think really balance is a key. In my day job, I listen to stories, and then to be able to synthesize the feelings that I have and to present and write really does kind of balance the scales. So I think that's the best I can do for that.
That's a good one. That's a good answer. Matt, what do you think?
Oh, I don't even know, because I don't know what, like, I've always been doing this,
We know it's like one of those questions.
It's just, I mean, it's changed my life, and I mean, it's changed my life in that it's such a privilege to be able to do this, like to tell stories and to just work with stories. Like, it's such a gift, and I just can't imagine my life without it. This story in particular was like working on something like this and trying like actively to put some sort of positive energy into the world with my writing was something that maybe I didn't do so much in the past. And so it was exciting to be able to write something that I thought was just a source of good, I hope. Yeah.
Yes, and healing and humor while approaching something so intense and serious.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great. How about you, Dylan?
Sure. I think I would take a slightly different direction on it, which is that there are experiences and ideas, and Mark hit on this in Time Out Catharsis, but there are experiences and ideas that I've been thinking about for several years. And so this is my mode of thinking about it and of trying to articulate it.
Right.
I have not written very much, nor have I been writing very long. But
No.
The stories are an effort to struggle through a couple of central questions that I've been thinking about for a few years. So.
Gillen, that is super awesome. You would never know that that you haven't been writing forever with just the incredible, narrative we got there in the scene and these awesome characters. And I think, we can so relate to seizing on these images and moments in life and wanting to crystallize them and understand them through writing. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Joshua, how about you?
I guess writing this story in particular, how it changed my life, I guess. It was my first professional sale for a story. I hadn't been paid for my work before that. But I've sort of always been fascinated with that time in America, the Vietnam War, and I wanted to write about the war with while being real, but still maintaining a bit of grace with it. I didn't want to do anything very Hollywood about it. I thought if I was going to do this, I wanted to follow it from the young men that served, and that they were young men before they were soldiers.
Right. Wow, Joshua, that's incredibly powerful. I mean, we love asking this question. We love getting to kind of hear where everyone's coming from with how writing has changed their lives and how it's given them an opportunity to kind of write about these things that are in them, that are with them, that are powerful to them. I would love to hear more about maybe your process with these pieces and with Consequence Forum. Now, are these pieces the pieces of yours that were published in Consequence Forum, or okay, fantastic. just confirming.
I also want to know, are these stories that you read tonight, are they still available for people to read if they go to the consequenceforum.org and look these things up? Deb, is everything there? It's not like they appear for a while and then they're gone.
Well, I think Mark's is on the website. The other stories appear in
the actual
different in the actual journal.
In the print version?
Just because, in the print version.
Nice.
But the stuff that's on the website stays on for quite a while.
Well, get
People
your
can-
hands on that print copy and get on that website, everybody.
I think there's also a digital version of the issue.
Print version.
Yes,
out as
you
well.
can
The print
also
version,
get a
there should be
PDF.
digital version as well. Yeah, PDF.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's
Excellent.
great. So, but back to your actual question, Katie, which was
Yes.
the process. Right?
Yes.
So,
I would love to hear like kind of more behind this particular piece, how the piece you shared tonight kind of came to be and how it got into Consequence. And I guess we can just kind of go around, starting with Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, Squirrel started as sort of a side character to a larger work that Cal was more of a focus on. But he became so interesting to me. And then in the work that I do with veterans, I started to find a lot more stuff there. And then kind of really broke out into this short story and submitted it to Consequence. But the root of it is really my fascination with faith. And that's why he's a Marine, because in the work that I do, it is such the Semper Fi model, and the motto is just there's so much belief and so much faith that goes into the culture.
Right.
And as I got into developing him and from where he was from and his background, I saw so many threads of that, and I just found that just really interesting to work with.
Awesome.
And the complexity of combat and war, and Consequence was just an outstanding place to submit it, and I was just so happy that it was picked up.
Great.
Mark, did this Sisyphus element of the story, was that there from the beginning? Was that something that you were like, oh, I'm going to write a sort of use Sisyphus as a starting off point, or did you come to that while you were writing?
No, I just used my patron saint, and I just dropped him right into it.
That's great.
Just pushing that boulder uphill. I just figured I'd just drop him right on there and have
I love
him back there. So. And that's really
great.
what it was. Is that he did really, he is kind of the mythological basis where you just keep going, you just keep pushing the boulder uphill, and it just really worked for Squirrel.
Yeah, for sure.
So cool.
Matt, how did you come to this concept? Is this really unique and unusual dialogue?
I love it.
I just thought it was a pretty funny gag, and then I just thought it was a silly idea, and so that seemed fun. But then as I started writing it, became a lot like you can't really write a story about PTSD. I don't know why that surprised me, but it was like shattering, and the story really took a turn as I got into the details of it. And when I finished, I did some looking around at journals, and Consequence was my top pick for this because I was just so drawn to their mission statement and the complexities of war, and they seem to really just honor the human beings involved. Yeah. And so I was like, wow, what a great place if I could get it published here. And then I got to say too, the editorial process, working with the editor at Consequence was maybe the most thorough, and they made the story immeasurably better.
Awesome.
It was just like such a powerful editorial experience with the folks over there, and they're so smart and clearly work so hard. So it's a real gift and honor.
We love to hear that. That is so cool. Awesome.
So Gillen, then what's the process with this particular story? Where you said there was you've been writing stuff to kind of, you didn't use this word process, but just sort of explore things that were on your mind. Was this like something based on something that really happened, or something you heard and then it became a story?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So there's a few different things. So there was a time where there was a foreign civilian who was killed by an American accidentally, and there was no real consequences.
Wow.
And so I had that in my head.
Right.
But at the same time, virtually every Marine that I've ever worked with has been just a great person. And so there's this paradox of how do you have good people and bad outcomes.
Right.
And so I wanted to think through that. I was overseas when the MC moved, and there was a whole lot of talk about thinking that it would provoke a lot of violence. And so I had all these different ideas in my head. And I didn't read this portion of the story, but ultimately things get out of control, and they ultimately run over in a vehicle, and they run over a civilian, and then they leave the body there.
Oh my God.
And he misses his son's birthday in the process.
Oh my God.
And so I had that image in my head at the outset. I knew that the end of the story was that a essentially good person who really just wants to be there for his son's birthday is in a situation in which he kills someone. What would have to happen to get him to that point?
Right.
And the other thing that I knew about the story was that there were not going to be any line break, or not section breaks. So it would all be one section, because once you're in this situation, you can't get out of it. It compels you on. So there's no section breaks to the whole story.
Right.
So it took a great deal of time to write. It was important to me. I hope it was funny. It's important to me that it be funny, but hopefully not farcical. Hopefully it walks up to the edge but doesn't cross it. So I think similar to what Matt just commented on, I had not submitted anything to Consequence. This is the third story I had written, but Consequence was the ideal venue. And it was one of the first that I submitted it to. I didn't know anyone there. I just sent it to the slush pile, which I guess Deb is the genial overlord of. And thankfully, either she or
I have a team. I have a team.
I love this. That's so great.
I would say that similar to Matt, I was really grateful for the editing process. Aside from a couple of friends and my wife and my mother, I hadn't really had anyone edit my work before, and certainly not in a situation where I didn't know the person. And
wow.
So it was a productive process, but it was also very edifying as well. So,
that is so cool, Gillen. This is huge. This is awesome to hear. You'd have no idea. You've only written a few stories, and that this was kind of maybe a bit of a newer experience. You gotta keep writing and sharing and submitting. That's so fantastic.
thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, and Joshua, we got to pass this question over to you. Tell us more about this piece and your process with Consequence. How did it all happen?
Yeah, so similar to Gillen and Matt, it was on the top of my list for this piece to send. Consequence was. I'd been a reader of the magazine for a while submitting other stories, and I just knew it would be a good fit for the magazine, and I knew that it would be treated right. And I really adored their mission and what they do. And with the piece, I wanted to write a combination of how war can be tiring. I really wanted to get across the idea that it can be tiring, and it can also sometimes be boring, in the sense that I wanted to get across the idea when you're on a hike or you're exercising and you're bored and you're daydreaming, and I wanted to put that into the minds of, or wanted to get into the minds of the soldiers during that, and then I also really wanted to focus on how the jungle and the land was a sort of enemy in itself. And I wanted to make it's a relatively short story. It's probably one of my shortest stories. I wanted it to be short. I needed it to be just like a dream, like a daydream.
Right, right. It really does have that effect. It felt like that. It felt overwhelming in all of these different ways that, that absolutely was received. You're kind of like
Right.
slogging through, and it's very surreal, very cool.
So I can imagine there's a point in like marching, right, over days and days and days where I mean, you are kind of in a dream state. I would think, at a certain point, just hours and hours of this, in the rain and everything, you're almost like asleep while you walk, and then, you start noticing some weird stuff, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I hoped I was
Yeah,
able to do. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we have a famous last double question. And it's the last question, but we love to give people time for this, to give these answers. And you know what, I'll pass it over. Chris, you do the best job introducing our
Oh,
famous
yeah.
last double question. We need this from everyone. We need it from everyone, and we'll cap it off with Deb at the end too.
Great.
Okay.
Deb's gonna take Part one is pretty simple. Just a pearl of wisdom for writers out there. Maybe writers out there who are writing whatever, but if they're going to be writing about conflict or war or anything, just any words of advice that you would give them. And the second one, we always ask for a book recommendation, but I would particularly like a book recommendation, perhaps something that you have read that's affected you, about this kind of writing, um, you know, Stephen Crane all the way up to whoever, great, war writing or whatever. Anything you could recommend. We'll start with Mark again.
Okay. Okay. Well, I
Mark
think
is like John and Deb.
I'm thinking I had to write down the two-parter because it's late for me, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure I can remember both parts of this, so didn't want to flub it up. But
Pearl
for
of
the
wisdom
first
recommendation.
part, right? For the first part, as far as words of wisdom, I don't know that I'm in position to offer any words of wisdom actually, but I think that with communication, to just everything starts with the listening. So that I find that the better job I do listening, then eventually that is transformative and that I'll actually write things that make some sense.
Yes,
So
yes,
being
yes.
attentive and listening and being able to do that well, it actually informs any creativity, whether it's music or writing or anything like that. So that would be my take on that. As far as transformative or formative books or book that would inform this kind of writing in particular with this domain, I think that two come to mind right off the bat. First is Tim O'Brien's The Things That They Carry,
Oh, yeah.
which was just so transformative early on, and that he's just wonderful too. He came down here to UNC Wilmington, and I met him, and he's just great. So The Things That They Carried, and then what I think is basically a manual for PTSD is Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five.
Well,
It's just like, when you read that as a 15-year-old, you think it's really cool. And
Right.
then after you've been practicing in therapy for a while and you realize, no, the idea of being unstuck in time and the whole frame that he puts things in is
Right.
phenomenal. And
That's great.
those are two books that stand out to me, The Things That They Carried and Slaughterhouse-Five.
That would be so wonderful to read like a kind of an essay about Slaughterhouse-Five from that maybe it's been done, but from that angle of somebody who works in the field that you work in.
Oh, I bet you there's
It's a beautiful book. I read it when I was 15, and yeah, you're right. It was cool. And then I read it a few years ago, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just kind of horrifying. And yeah, it's great. All right, Matt, Pearl of Wisdom.
Oh, it's pretty simple. I guess it's pretty simple. Just sit down and write is the hardest part about writing, is
Yep.
actually getting in there and
So true.
You know, I think creativity is like looking for me, and so I have to sort of show up at the desk at similar times on a consistent basis, so it knows where to find me. And in terms of war literature, yeah, I would certainly echo Mark's picks, and Catch-22, of course,
Oh God, yes.
is another one, and along those lines too. There's a Chinese novel called To Live by Yu Hua, has a really powerful middle section about war that's similar to O'Brien, and Vonnegut and Heller is really about the randomness and the absurdity. And I'm not a combat veteran myself, and so I don't know. But those narratives, and Louise Erdrich as well, I think writes about veterans in a really powerful way, and just writes about sort of something that Gillen was talking about, the sort of like the way in which these ideas conflict and contradict and just don't seem to make a lot of sense. And
Right.
that's just very powerful stuff. So
Right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt.
Great. Gillen.
Gillen?
Well, so I'll give myself the instruction, which is that, and this Mark's author wrote about this, which is what makes the story true. And the test that I have for that for myself, the actions don't need to be true. You can push it beyond what might be real. The events don't need to be true. The situations can even be pushed into an area that's contrived in a way. Matt showed us this with this incredible conceit of an ancient Greek warrior sitting for a modern therapy session. But the motivations of why people do the things they do always need to be real. And the test I have is if a Marine friend of mine or a military friend of mine picks it up and reads it, would they say to themselves that, yes, this is how this is what you would do in that situation? Or would they set aside and say that that's not right? I'm actually always terrified of that moment. Because were they to say that that's not right, it would crush me. Because I want to be faithful and honor those moments for good or for bad. And then for a writer who has influenced me, who I think does this with incredible beauty, and not well known, I don't think. He's now a journalist at the New Yorker. He just published a work of nonfiction called The Storm Is Here. His name is Luke Mogelson. And in 2011 or 12, he published a collection of short stories called These Heroic Happy Dead. Stunning collection, totally stunning from front to end. The first story is called To the Lake. It's about a man who's losing his girlfriend and his sanity and his freedom all sort of in the same moment. And, it's an awesome story.
Wow.
I can't recommend Luke Mogelson's These Heroic Happy Dead enough. I turn to it again and again for thinking through how to develop character and how to tell a story. So
that's great. That's great. I've read a lot of his stuff in the New Yorker. He's a wonderful writer. Yeah. Joshua.
So a bit of writing advice. I'm not sure. I've only had a few short stories published. I guess the way I see it is that, like, there's the old saying that you should write what you know, but I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I think you should probably write what you can't stop thinking about, because I don't my uncle served in Iraq, but I don't necessarily know anyone that served in Vietnam. But I think if an idea comes to you and it sticks with you for long enough in that sort of powerful way, you can probably figure out a way to write it with some grace and without any misconceptions, I think. But for a book that I adore and really helped me, not just with this piece, but with writing in general, it's Cole Melantis's Matterhorn. That's a huge book on Vietnam. I think it's almost 1,000 pages. And similar to Mark, I would have said The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. That's great. And the way I would say it, Matterhorn is if the things they carry just kept on going and going and going. It's a big book, but it's excellent.
That's awesome, Joshua. And we one of our friends from our MFA program, Elena Dillon, is absolutely incredible with research, and we talk about this kind of thing all the time, like whether or not maybe you've been in this historical situation or this exact moment or profession, if you're able to kind of be this incredible researcher and writer and tap into these different human emotions and scenes, then there are so many different ways to kind of do a topic justice and explore these various human elements of them. And I think Elena Dillon, I'm the name is escaping me right now, but she wrote as a about being an Olympic gymnast, right? And she was not an Olympic gymnast. That's a very different area than what we're talking about tonight. But wrote so powerfully, you fully could feel like you could actually imagine in so many ways that you were so connected to that, and that's very different. But we appreciate that too, and I think Chris can probably speak more to this as a fiction writer. I'm the poetry end of this, so I'm just feeling all of my feelings all the time and into every subject without doing necessarily a ton of research, but we get it. We do.
It's about the feelings. I mean, the feelings of the Trojan warrior are not that different from the feelings of the guy in Iraq or Afghanistan. The feelings are all pretty much the same, right? But it's just the circumstances, and that's where the research comes in. Like
right.
What did that spear feel like versus what did the automatic weapon that somebody would have now. But Deb, we want to get Deb in here. So Deb, I'm sure she has a curl of wisdom.
Okay. No, everybody's had really good insights. I definitely would agree with Joshua. Write what compels you rather than what you know, because if you've got a sheltered life, your stories won't be very interesting. I would say, definitely write a compelling idea, like when I did Spooky Night and wrote the beginning of the story about zombies in Verdun. Well, obviously, none of us were alive in 1916, and there really weren't any zombies at Verdun, but I did visit Verdun in person, and I found it a very compelling place. So that idea, the seed of the idea, arose from that. From my perspective, being a slush pile reader of fiction, I would say, this is just my opinion, the ideal short story should probably be maybe no longer than 10 to 12 pages. At most.
We've got
it should have
here.
Yeah, because the longer you go does not make it better. I mean, if you're getting to 20 pages, why don't you just turn it into a novella? And it should have kind of a unique twist. Something you don't, something happens that's a little bit unexpected, just from my perspective, and you can tell probably by the first maybe half page whether you feel compelled reading it to want to read more.
Mm-hmm.
And after you've read like 30 of them, believe me, that some of them stand out, rise to the top. And if somebody's writing like Tom Clancy, then that usually doesn't usually rise to the top of our accept pile. A couple of books, I think people have already mentioned them. Definitely Slaughterhouse-Five, Catch-22 was a big one. There's a very compelling nonfiction, John Hershey, Hiroshima,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's only like 150 pages, but that's very powerful. And then, of course, over the summer, I read Phil Clyde's book, Missionaries.
Oh, Phil
Yeah,
Clark. Yes, yes,
that's,
yes.
yeah. So much for a fun summer read, but that was a very very powerful book as well.
Right. Oh my goodness. We just want to thank all of you so much for being our guests this evening. I do need to make sure I don't forget to share. My dad doesn't have social media, but he has to say, Gillen, he's wearing the same shirt as you tonight, and but also he is really proud, as a veteran himself, as a former military guy, he's really proud of all of your writing and the way you write about veterans and war and all that. We're so we're honored to have all of you, and we think that your writing is so important. We thank you so much for being our guests this evening. Mark Baskill, Matt Burgess, Gillen Crichton, Joshua Nagel, and Deb Cart. Thank you so much. One more round of applause, Chris. So much. And thank you to our audience on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and to the people who will be watching this after the fact. We know that not everybody can join live. We thank you so much once again, and make sure if you are able to get to South Norwalk on Friday night, we have a fantastic in-person open mic, and we hope that you'll be there. And then, happy Thanksgiving to all. Once again, happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all of our veterans. Thank you to all of our people writing about veterans as well. It's been an awesome evening. Thanks again. Good night, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.